The mirror in her bedroom showed tomorrow instead of today. After the night her mother passed away, Claire Morgan stopped sleeping with the lights off, even though she told everyone she was fine. Grief had a way of turning ordinary shadows into silent observers, and darkness no longer felt empty. She kept the bedside lamp on every night, its warm glow a small defense against thoughts she couldn't silence. The room never truly felt quiet anymore. Earlier, the house had been filled with the soft routines of caring for someone who needed her. Medication schedules, whispered reassurances, and the steady rhythm of hospital visits had structured her days. Now the silence felt unstructured, wide, and unpredictable. Without responsibility, time stretched in uncomfortable ways. Meanwhile, the mirror across from her bed remained exactly where it had always been, tall and plain with a thin wooden frame. It had reflected years of ordinary mornings and late nights without ever drawing attention. Claire had barely noticed it before. Grief, however, sharpens awareness of things once invisible. Before that first strange night, the mirror had behaved like any other, offering nothing but her tired reflection and the dim outline of her room. There had been no flickers, no distortions, no sense that it could show anything beyond the present moment. Reality felt stable then, predictable in its boundaries. She would soon learn how fragile that stability was. During the early hours of a restless morning, Claire rolled onto her back and stared at the ceiling, unable to return to sleep. The digital clock read 3:12 a.m., the same hour she had been waking up every night since the funeral. Her thoughts drifted between memory and numbness, never settling long enough to rest. The lamp cast a soft circle of light across the room. Then her eyes moved toward the mirror without any clear reason, drawn by something she couldn't name. At first, she thought her vision was blurred from exhaustion because the reflection looked slightly off. The bed appeared the same, the lamp in place, the window closed, but the digital clock in the mirror read 8:47 a.m. As soon as she sat upright, her heart began to pound, the sudden shift in numbers cutting through her fogged thoughts. She turned her head toward the real clock beside her bed. It still read 3:12. She looked back at the mirror. Afterward, the reflection did not change. Morning light filled the mirrored room, bright and clear, replacing the darkness she still sat inside. The curtains in the reflection were open, sunlight spilling across the floor. In her actual room, they remained closed. While her mind searched desperately for a rational explanation, her body stayed frozen in place. Maybe she was dreaming, caught between sleep and waking. Maybe grief had finally pushed her into hallucination, yet everything felt painfully real. Later, the figure in the mirror moved and Claire's breath stopped. It was her, dressed in clothes she had not yet chosen, hair pulled back in a way she didn't remember doing. The reflected version of her walked past the mirror and out of sight, as though continuing a morning routine. Claire remained seated in bed, unmoving. Meanwhile, the reflected room stayed bright, quiet, and undeniably ahead of her own. She watched as the mirrored clock ticked forward minute by minute, while her real clock barely changed. Time was not matching, it was separating. Since losing her mother, Claire had questioned many things about life, but never the direction of time itself. The idea that tomorrow could be visible today had never crossed her mind, yet the evidence stood directly in front of her. The mirror did not reflect the present. Shortly after the mirrored version of her disappeared, the reflected room remained empty, morning frozen in place. Claire slowly stood from her bed, moving toward the mirror with cautious steps. Each movement felt like approaching a boundary she should not cross. Her reflection did not return. Then she reached out and touched the glass, half expecting her hand to pass through. The surface was cool and solid under her fingers, ordinary in every physical way. Yet what it showed was not ordinary at all. Tomorrow was waiting on the other side. Meanwhile, Claire stood inches from the mirror, her reflection absent while the bright morning scene remained undisturbed on the other side. The sunlight in the reflection looked warmer than any light currently in her dark room, as if tomorrow carried a different atmosphere altogether. Her heart pounded steadily, not from sudden fear, but from the slow realization that she was witnessing something impossible. The boundary between what was and what would be felt dangerously thin. As she stepped back, trying to steady her breathing, the reflected version of her reappeared, walking into view with casual familiarity. That future Claire looked calm, unaware of being observed from the past. She picked up her phone from the dresser and read something on the screen, her expression tightening in a way that made present Claire uneasy. It was not fear, but concern. During the silent observation, Claire noticed details that unsettled her more than the time difference itself. The future version of her wore a gray sweater she had not seen in months, one packed away in a storage box. A faint crease marked her forehead, as though she had been thinking intensely. Every small element suggested this was not random illusion, but a consistent, unfolding reality. Afterward, future Claire hurried out of the bedroom and disappeared down the hall, leaving the mirrored room empty once again. The reflected clock now read 9:03 a.m., while her real one barely passed 3:20. The gap between times felt measurable, structured. This was not a momentary distortion, it was a window. While standing there, Claire felt an unfamiliar urge growing inside her, a mix of fear and temptation. If the mirror truly showed tomorrow, then she could know what was coming before it arrived. She could prepare, avoid mistakes, maybe even prevent pain. Grief had already taught her how little control life offered. Then she made a decision that felt small but irreversible. She would watch carefully without interfering, just to understand the pattern. Knowledge, she told herself, did not equal harm. It was only observation. As soon as she focused again, the mirror shifted to show the hallway beyond her bedroom. Future Claire moved through the living room, picking up her keys from the table near the door. The gesture looked rushed, distracted. She seemed late for something. Meanwhile, present Claire glanced at her own keys on the same table across the room. They rested exactly where she had left them the night before, unmoved. The parallel felt surreal, like watching two timelines layered on top of each other. One version of her lived ahead. Before she could look away, the mirror showed future Claire step outside into bright daylight. A car drove past the house, too fast for a residential street. The future version of her hesitated at the curb, checking her phone again. During that instant, a sharp horn blared from somewhere beyond the frame. Future Claire looked up, startled, just as a cyclist swerved to avoid the speeding car. The collision happened partly out of view, but the sound of impact echoed faintly even through the silent glass. Future Claire dropped her phone in shock. After witnessing the moment, present Claire stumbled backward, breath catching painfully in her chest. The mirror still showed tomorrow, frozen at the aftermath of something she had not yet lived. Her hands shook as realization settled in. She had not only seen the future, she had seen an accident. While panic rose, another thought followed close behind, colder and heavier. If she knew this would happen, could she stop it? The temptation to change events pulled at her harder than fear ever could. Doing nothing suddenly felt like choosing harm. Then she turned away from the mirror and looked at her closed curtains, at the dark, quiet room still hours behind that moment. The day had not started yet. Time remained unspent. The choice lay in front of her. Finally, Claire understood the weight of what the mirror offered. It did not simply show tomorrow, it handed her responsibility for it. Whether she acted or not would now carry consequences she could never unknow. The future had become something she could touch. At last, she moved toward the window, heart racing, knowing the sun would rise soon in her world too. The mirror behind her continued to glow with morning light, waiting to reveal what she would decide. Tomorrow was no longer distant. It was watching her back.